Hey everyone, Shawn Garrett here, founding attorney of Garrett PLC and founder of the Legal Eagle podcast. As you know, after many episodes, this podcast isn't to brain dump complex legal concepts, but instead to highlight some of the entrepreneurs and business leaders in the communities that I serve. I'm licensed to practice law in North Carolina, South Carolina, Illinois, Missouri. So most of these stories are going to be coming from Charlotte, Greenville, Chicago, and St. Louis. Today, we have a very fun podcast, one that I'm extremely excited about. We have Leah Williams, Patrick Johnson, and Bailey Kirby, and we are going to be showing our listeners what it's like when you have everyone in the same room. So I will let Patrick, Leah, and Bailey, do you guys mind doing a quick introduction? Let's start with Leah.
Hi, everyone. And Shawn, thank you so much for having me on here. I'm excited to talk about real life scenarios that we encounter every day. I'm the owner of Savvy Financial. People know me best for tax efficient planning when it comes to financial planning as a whole. I work with both individual and business owners. I'd say about 70% of the people I work with own a business or have that side hustle. So I'm excited to be here and walk through this scenario with you all.
Awesome. Thanks, Leah. Bailey, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Bailey Kirby. I'm an associate attorney at Garrett PLC with Shawn. I focus on the trust and estate planning side of the business.
Awesome. And then Mr. Menifee, thank you for being here today under your alias Patrick Johnson. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I assume you want to know who Patrick Johnson is.
Give us Menifee first, and then we'll transition into Mr. Johnson.
All right, I don't do a lot of acting work, so Patrick Menifee. I live here in Charlotte, North Carolina as well. I run a couple of different businesses that are all related to the same thing, and it's all related to mindset and success coaching. So I run Charlotte Entrepreneurs, which is a local organization for small business owners to really just do a lot of networking on a more authentic level. Connected based on who we are. And then I run a coaching mastermind community where we focus really heavily on helping the business owner grow as a person, as opposed to just growing at the business itself. So that's the primary focus. And I have a beautiful wife and daughter, 3-year-old daughter.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat. All right. I'm going to transition over into our role play and we'll go from there. Mr. Johnson, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Shawn.
Yeah. So I know that you own a business. We have a financial planner, we have a business attorney, and we have a trust and estate attorney in the room today. And we just want to hear a little bit more about your business and some of your personal development. Tell us about your business.
Yeah. So the business is, it's a cafe out in the Durham area, and it's in a historic building. I've been running that for the last couple of years, and it's great. It does well for us. We've got an annual income of around $500,000. And so it does well for me and the family. I've got 3 kids, 9, 12, and 16. And so we own our primary residence, have a mortgage on it. We've got another plot of land out in Asheville that we want to do some stuff with in the future. I don't quite know where that's going to go yet. But what I'm most interested in is putting to effective use the money that I have that comes in from the business to help my family and I hit our goals that we have, set my kids up for success for the future, help my wife and I live an amazing life. And then it's very important that all of this is protected. We've got a business that I want protected. I've got a family that I want protected. So I don't have the protection in place that I need right now. So I know that there are some things that I need. I just don't know what it is yet.
Of course. Yeah. Awesome. Well, congrats on getting to this point in your life. A couple fact-finding questions that I want to ask. Do you lease or own the space that you guys occupy in the cafe?
We own it.
Okay, good. Congrats on that. And when you mentioned $500K in revenue, you didn't mention revenue. You mentioned the $500,000. Is that revenue or is that the income that your family brings in from the cafe?
That's actually the income that we bring home. The revenue is probably around $1 million or so a year.
Awesome. You guys are selling a lot of coffees.
A lot of coffees. We've got a lot of really good merch as well.
I got to come try it out. So when it comes to the business side of things, do you know if you're an LLC or a corporation? It's something that I can look up, but I would assume you're probably an LLC, taxed as an S corp, since you're bringing in that amount of revenue and you're paying yourself. That's going to be the most advantageous structure from a tax standpoint. So I can look up your entity. I can't look up whether you're an S corp or not, but I get the feeling that you are. And from there, is it just yourself as owner, or do you have any other owners in the business?
No, it's just me.
Awesome. Well, that streamlines things from an ownership standpoint. We will have some conversations regarding succession planning, how you're going to transfer the business to whether it's an employee or if you're going to transfer it to your family. But one thing I did want to do is I wanted to have Leah chime in when it came to that amount of income and just kind of give you some tips from her standpoint regarding what she would advise you right off the bat.
Hi, Patrick. Well, congrats on, those of us that own businesses know that there's a lot of ups and downs in business, and especially when you are the sole owner, a lot rides on your shoulders. So congrats on creating so much success, as well as diversifying your assets. You've got a great asset in your business, but owning the property that the cafe is in and the land in Asheville, when I look at someone's financial plan, I look for true diversity. So not just stock market assets, but real estate is big. So, I'm not sure who your CPA is. Do you work with a really good accountant or CPA right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, I'm sure they're doing some great planning for you and looking at some cost segregation, possibly some, I know you had mentioned that you might have some plans for the land in Asheville, maybe turning it into a retreat, or, I'd love to unpack that more at some point. But there's some big tax deductions that you could capitalize on there, especially if it qualified for some farming capabilities. I know the cafe is farm to table sourcing, and you're in a historic building. There are some tax opportunities with both of those details when it comes to your cafe. So I would definitely make sure you're capitalizing on those with your CPA. And just owning a business in general, you have so many write-off opportunities. So while I never try to be somebody's CPA, because taxes are such a big part in someone's financial plan, that's really where you can capitalize on keeping more of the money that you're earning. As far as employees go, how many do you have 1099s or part-time, full-time? What's the split between employees?
I have mostly part-time employees. I have 2 full-time that help me manage it.
Okay.
So, but mostly part-time.
Would you say those 2 full-time were pretty reliable, trustworthy people that are really helping you with operations and probably going to stick around for a while?
Yeah. Okay. We have a pretty good culture with them and with some of the employees and the customers that we have too. It's turned into a little bit of a family there. So yeah, I think those 2 in particular, I think will be hopefully with me for the long haul. So.
Okay. So just a few things, and I've got a couple things to share on the family side with your children, but thinking about business first, when it comes to employees and wanting to retain your good people, obviously I know the part-timers, you don't have to offer as many benefits there. Sometimes they're seasonal, maybe some college students, that's normal, right? But for some of your full-time people that you really want to offer some great benefits to, capitalize on deductions and also benefit from these benefits for yourself and your family. So things like health insurance, having, if you have a high deductible plan, having an HSA available, getting some pre-tax savings that you might use for medical expenses for your family. I have a child as well, and you're always taking him to the doctor, right? So, those things are always coming up. So being able to use pre-tax dollars and have an HSA will be big for you. $8,000 a year will be helpful. But also some other benefits you mentioned, wanting to protect your family. And while I'm a big believer in proper risk management on the disability life insurance front, you're super young, so you might not be thinking about long-term care insurance, but there are some big tax deductions there for you as a business owner. You can offer some of these group benefits such as disability, and you can benefit from those. So for your 2 full-time employees, I'm sure they would have a lot of comfort in knowing that if they were sick and couldn't work, they would still have some income coming in through disability insurance. And you would also benefit from that as, a benefit for your own personal world. So things like that, I would say, evaluate benefits that you're offering, what tax deductions you can leverage. If you want to incentivize maybe one of those managers to stay with you longer, we could talk about some executive bonus structures with golden handcuffs. There's a lot of creative planning you could do on the business front. I'll pause there before I jump onto the personal side. Shawn, you
That's
probably have
awesome.
some other questions.
Yeah. Thanks, Leah. I think you saw me smiling when you said golden handcuffs. Attorney love a good golden handcuff provision. But yeah, so I like that we were diving into retention of employees. One conversation that we have when it comes to succession planning, do you anticipate that either of these employees could step up down the road if anything were to happen to you and take over the business, maybe buy you out? What are your thoughts there? Have you given that any thought?
I don't know yet. They may. They're starting to show a little bit of potential for it, but I at this point, I don't know that I would feel comfortable or that they would necessarily feel comfortable handling it. But also at the same point, my wife doesn't even drink coffee, so I know she doesn't want to run it or if something were to happen to me. So that's
Yeah.
one big question mark that I don't have an answer to.
Love it. Well, what I would start with then on the business side is I would make sure that we have a solid operating agreement in place. You're sole owner, sole manager, so it would be pretty straightforward, but it at least gives us a baseline to build off of down the road. If you did decide to add one of those employees as a manager and then potentially a member / owner down the road, and then from there we can put in buy-sell agreements that Leah would be able to advise on funding. But since that's not a conversation that you're considering at the moment, I'll just lay that land and then down the road, know that you've got a team of people that can help you put that in place. Okay.
Okay, great. That helps.
Switching over to the personal side, you have 3 children and a beautiful wife. So what I would say is I would certainly advise putting a trust in place. Now, what the mechanics look like, Bailey's going to dive into as our trust and estate planning attorney, but a trust is a very important vehicle to utilize both on the personal side and the business planning side down the road. So, Bailey, why don't you dive into what a trust is and what that would look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So a trust is going to be a great vehicle to streamline future transfer of assets while avoiding things like probate. And also, I know you mentioned, making sure that you're setting your kids up for success and then being able to maximize on the success of your business. In the future. They are minors right now, so trusts can set up future trusts, transferring the income and the assets held in that trust to your children through a trust set up for their benefit. And it avoids probate. It creates, a lot of control for you now, but also a lot of control for future transfers that you can, discuss, especially with your wife now, about how you would want to set those up for your kids.
Great. Okay.
So my first question when it would come to trusts is, I know that you currently have an LLC, which we're going to, look into and confirm. We could place your interest in that LLC actually into a trust so that your trust can manage that LLC's interest and kind of give you both the protection of a limited liability company, limiting that liability, but also creating more asset management for the future for your family. I do know that we're, kind of tossing around, would a future business partner want to take it over? Would your wife want to, or potentially one of your children want to take over the management of the trust, which would manage that LLC asset that you currently have? I know you have a teenager. Have they shown any sort of interest in your business so far?
Yeah. I think that's hopefully the most promising route. I would love the business to follow along in the family's name, except obviously not my wife. She's interested in the real estate side of it, but
Sure.
yeah, I think hopefully it would be something that kids would be interested in.
Yeah, and that's definitely something we can continue to kind of check in on with a trust as your child right now being a minor. If they, turn 18 and continue to show that interest, and you train them in that business, and you would like to create the opportunity for them to take over part of the trust management, which manages the LLC's interest in your business, it can create an easier transfer of that asset and control in the future.
And one thing, Bailey, that was a great job. One thing I wanted to touch on that I discuss with my business owners quite often. Bailey will tell you I like to harp. I can say things only so many times, but when it comes to the trust and the limited liability company, the trust does not offer any asset protection. So if you were sued, the trust does not offer protection. The LLC would do that. However, the LLC may or may not escape probate, depending on how it's structured. I would say most of the time it's not going to. So having those two vehicles hand in hand are really going to assist in the transfer of assets as well as that limited liability protection. I did want to bop over to Leah real quick and chat about insurance and if she had any other suggestions on the personal side.
Sure. Well, this could be a much longer conversation, which I'd love to have at some point. But on the insurance side, I know risk management isn't the sexy part of financial planning. Everybody knows that, but it is the glue that holds these key pillars together. Your income. I mean, Sarah does a lot for the family. So both of you, this isn't just about who is getting the W-2 and who's getting the income. It's really on both spouses. So, walking through what you would need to sustain your family's lifestyle if God forbid something were to happen. And so that's kind of speaking to the life insurance side, and there's many kinds of life insurance, but at the most basic level, term insurance is going to be the most inexpensive. When we get deeper into business planning and how you can grow tax-free assets, we can always unpack more of the permanent insurance side of it, but really just the protection that it provides. Finding what your family's number is. We don't want to over-insure, but it's pretty easy to find out. Do we want mortgage paid off? Knowing that your youngest, Mia, is 9, 9 more years and she's 18, those are probably the most critical years. Add on a few for college. That's really a critical time frame to cover on the life insurance side. I know I referenced disability through the business. Personally owning disability is also going to be something that will just allow you to kind of maximize the amount of income protection that you have. So you can have group disability insurance that your employees get to benefit from as well as you, but then you can personally own it yourself. And then something like an umbrella policy. Not that many people talk about it, but as you start to build assets, you have a company. We all know we live in a crazy world where, somebody would love to sue you if they knew that you had a lot of assets. So think about an umbrella policy as being the backup once your homeowners, your business insurance, your car insurance, once those limits get maxed out and someone, comes after you or sues you, now you're dipping into personal assets. And that's what we want to avoid. So an umbrella policy is something that would fall into that insurance category, really inexpensive, but can really help prevent some of those financially derailing things from happening if, some crazy person decides to sue you for something. Thinking about your children, I am always an advocate when you own a business, hire those kids. They're minors. We can confirm whether you file as an S corp, and if you do, there's one additional step to create a family management company that would pay your children. But we're going to avoid the 1099s and the W-2s to your kids while they're minors. The goal is for you to get an upfront tax deduction, for them not to pay taxes, and for you to now have money to help them with their future, whether that's opening Roth IRAs for them. Of course, 529s are great, but sometimes something like a Roth or other vehicles that you can use what money that you got a tax deduction on to save for their future, or spend it on things that you would probably already buy for your kids. So there's a lot of creative planning when it comes to your children. And I'm talking about jobs that they can do. Maybe they can run some social media for you. I mean, kids are better at Instagram than we are. Let's be honest. So, whether it's that or cleaning the cafe or, things like that. It's very easy to support paying your children and getting those deductions. So there's a lot of creative planning that we could do there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leah. Well, Pat, we're nearing the end of our initial consultation. I did want to open it up to you, though. Did you have any questions that you wanted to get off your chest and ask us before we concluded our time?
Just one thing I've been thinking about over the next couple of years doing something with that land but I also want to make sure that when I do it in a way that is tax advantaged, hopefully without spending a whole ridiculous amount of money to develop it. Any suggestions or things that I should keep in mind as I get started?
Yeah, so I've got a handful of items there. I would say, first of all, I was talking to you beforehand, and you mentioned you purchased it in the LLC with cash. So that's great. I would suggest that down the road, when we decided to actually start operating on that land, due to liability purposes, let's open up another LLC and put the land in its own LLC. That will help streamline your accounting. It will also help keep the liability of both entities separate. The land in Asheville will carry much different types of liability than a historic cafe in Durham. So I would say those are considerations initially. Really getting a business plan in place to figure out what you're going to be doing with that land is also going to be important. What type of funding you're going to need for it. From a legal standpoint, let's say you are growing kombucha out there. I don't know if you grow or brew kombucha, but there are different types of licenses possibly that you're going to need on the land. So I would say initially, my concern is the protection of the land today, and then down the road, as you build out that business plan, trying to figure out how we need to structure that entity and fund it. So, Leah, do you have any other suggestions?
You know me, I'm always looking at things through a tax lens. So you mentioned that Sarah had interest on the real estate side of things, and there's big opportunities when it comes to tax deduction. So whether you decide to have a small farm, maybe you set up some Airbnbs, that's a whole other conversation on what type of deductions you can get for real estate. However, if Sarah could be your full-time real estate spouse, it could open up a lot of opportunities for you if you decided to develop some of the land, whether it's for short-term or long-term rentals. So that would be a great opportunity for you. And that would also tie into the commercial building that you own for the cafe as well. So, and we can unpack that more as far as what professional real estate status would look like. It doesn't 100% mean she has to get her real estate license, although if she did, immediately she's in. It opens up a lot of deductions, but there are other ways to get around it if that's what she does full time. So I would definitely say bringing her into the conversation could really help you recapture some money that's going to the IRS and maybe even have that Asheville land be giving you a loss for the first couple of years to offset some of your pretty healthy cafe income. So there's a lot you can do there. You have a great foundation to work with, definitely some pieces to protect your assets and your family, but you have a lot of really good decisions that you put in place.
And then Bailey, when it comes to down the road, we've set up this separate LLC. With the trust you drafted, are we going to need to create a whole other trust? Are we amending it? What are we doing with that?
Yeah, no, we wouldn't have to necessarily create a whole nother trust. I do think it's interesting that, your wife is interested in the real estate side of things. So we would definitely want to make sure that if she wants to have more control or flexibility with that asset, that we would definitely include her in being able to manage that. And in the future, if that control needed to transfer to her individually, we can set that up in a trust as well.
Is there, on the real estate side, can I ask one other question?
Yeah, of course.
Is there, since I own the building, talking about the cafe, I own the building and they're all owned under the same company. Is there any benefit to my wife since she doesn't have a W-2? Is there any benefit to her in some way, shape, or form owning the building separately from the cafe? And me leasing it from her?
You're asking a tax question, and I know enough to be dangerous, but we have a professional here, so we're going to get it from Leah.
Well, and once again, not definitely refer to your CPA on this. It most likely would be beneficial to have her name, especially if she is going to be your ticket to real estate deductions. Then she would want to have ownership, because of course when you own commercial space and your business is renting it from you, there's a lot that opens up there. So if she qualified as a full-time real estate professional, then you would want to have her name on ownership of the building, and tied into ownership of the land. And she may already be, you may co-own the land in Asheville, I'm not sure, but yeah, something that we definitely want to run by your CPA. But if she's open to it, she could be the ticket to a lot of these tax incentives, and with it being a historic property too, there's some additional things to look at on the tax deduction side.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Pat, thank you for joining us. Leah, Bailey, thank you so much for being here. I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks, Shawn.
Thank you.